The candlelight flickered like a traitor's promise, casting jagged shadows across the polished table where Nathan Clark sat, his heart sinking into a cold abyss. He caught his wife, Allison, staring at the bartender. Not a glance, but a deliberate, hungry gaze, her lips parting as if she'd already claimed him in her mind. It was their 11th anniversary, yet the air in Portland's upscale restaurant felt heavy with betrayal, as if the jazz humming in the background mocked the vows they'd once sworn. Nathan, a 40-year-old gallery owner with a quiet intensity, had always prided himself on reading people. He'd built their art gallery, pure canvas, from a crumbling warehouse into a Portland gem, negotiating with artists and balancing books while Allison posed for Instagram, calling herself the visionary. But tonight, her eyes betrayed more than disinterest. They screamed a secret she thought he'd never uncover. He didn't flinch, didn't confront her. Instead, he sipped his wine, letting the bitter taste mirror the truth he'd discovered weeks ago. 3 weeks earlier, Allison had left her tablet open on their kitchen counter. A careless mistake that shattered Nathan's world. He wasn't snooping, merely grabbing her login for the gallery's payment system. But the screen blinked to life, revealing a Facebook Messenger chat with Dylan West, a slick wine distributor they'd met at a trade show. Nathan would never suspect a thing, she'd written, followed by a winking emoji. The words hit like a punch, but Nathan kept scrolling, each message a deeper cut. Flirty banter had morphed into plans. Secret meetings, a weekend in Woodinville she'd called a girls' trip. Even the silver cufflinks she'd given Nathan for his birthday, a gift he now knew came from Dylan's shop. Keeps him clueless, she'd typed, laughing through a string of emojis. Nathan's first instinct wasn't rage or tears. It was clarity. He'd spent years building their life, their business, their home, while Allison took the spotlight. She'd always been the charmer, the one who dazzled clients with her smile, but he'd been the backbone, the one who made her dreams real. Now he saw her for what she was, a liar who traded their marriage for a thrill. He didn't confront her that night. Instead, he closed the tablet, poured himself a coffee, and sat in the dark, his mind already charting a path, not to forgiveness, but to justice. Over the next few days, Nathan became a shadow in his own life, watching Allison with new eyes. She was colder now, her "I love you," a hollow script, her touch a transaction. She'd stopped asking about his day, stopped noticing the late nights he spent balancing the gallery's books. But she was meticulous in her own way, always checking her phone, always stepping out for errands that lasted too long. Nathan didn't need to follow her. The truth was already spilling out in fragments. A receipt for a hotel in Seattle, tucked in her purse. A call she took in the bathroom, her voice low and giggling. Each clue was a brick in the wall he was building, not to trap her, but to protect himself. He started gathering evidence with the precision of a surgeon. Nathan had full access to the gallery's accounts, emails, and contracts. Allison had signed over control 3 years ago, laughing off the paperwork as boring. "You're the numbers guy," she'd said, sipping rose. Now that trust was his weapon. He found discrepancies in the books. $10,000 siphoned to a personal account under the guise of charitable donations. The money had funded her trip with Dylan to Oregon's coast, a fact confirmed by a bank statement he pulled late one night. He saved screenshots of her messages, backing them up on a secure drive. He even installed an app to record her calls, using an anonymous subscription to avoid detection. Every step was legal, calculated, silent. Allison didn't suspect a thing. She carried on, her mask of affection slipping only in private moments. One evening, as Nathan worked in his office, she breezed in, her perfume sharp and unfamiliar. "You're working late again," she said, her tone more accusation than concern. "Just keeping the gallery afloat," he replied, not looking up. She lingered, her fingers brushing his shoulder. A gesture that once felt like love but now felt like a bribe. "You're too good to me," she murmured. But her eyes darted to her phone, buzzing with a new message. Nathan smiled faintly, knowing she was texting Dylan, planning their next move. That night, he lay beside her in their king-sized bed, her breathing steady as she scrolled through her phone, pretending to laugh at memes. He stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment he'd called Dylan from a burner sim during a lunch break. "Is this the guy trying to steal my life?" Nathan had asked, his voice calm but edged with steel. Dylan's laugh was nervous, faltering. "Look, man," she said, "you two were done." Nathan listed their meetings. Woodinville, Seattle, a Portland wine tasting, each date a dart that silenced Dylan's bravado. "She's planning to sell the gallery," Dylan stammered. "I told her it was crazy." Nathan ended the call with a single line. "You just made my case stronger." Now, in the restaurant, Nathan watched Allison play with her wine glass, her fingers tracing the rim as if bored. She hadn't dressed up tonight. No makeup, no jewelry, just a plain blouse that screamed indifference. The bartender passed by, and her eyes followed him again, a smirk tugging at her lips. Nathan's chest tightened, but he didn't react. This wasn't about jealousy anymore, it was about survival. He knew her endgame. Sell the gallery, cash out, disappear with Dylan. But she didn't know his. She didn't know he'd already locked down the business, secured the accounts, and built a case that would unravel her lies. She didn't know he was waiting, not for an apology, but for the moment she'd overplay her hand. As the waiter cleared their plates, Allison leaned forward, her voice soft but rehearsed. "You've been quiet tonight, Nate. Everything okay?" He met her gaze, searching for the woman he'd married, the one who'd once painted with him in their garage, laughing over spilled acrylics. She was gone, replaced by this stranger who thought she'd outsmarted him. "Just thinking about us," he said, his tone neutral. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You worry too much," she said, reaching for his hand. Her touch was cold, and Nathan let it linger, knowing this was the last time he'd play her game. He paid the bill, left a generous tip, and walked her to the car in silence. The Portland rain began to fall, soft and steady, as they drove home. Allison hummed along to the radio, oblivious to the storm brewing in Nathan's mind. This dinner wasn't a celebration. It was the first move in a chess game she didn't know she was playing. And Nathan was already 3 steps ahead, his pieces aligned, his strategy clear. Allison thought she held the queen, but Nathan was about to checkmate her world. Allison's laughter echoed through the gallery like a blade slicing through Nathan's resolve, each note a reminder of the life she was stealing. She stood by a new abstract painting, her arm brushing Dylan's as they whispered about future collaborations, their voices dripping with secrets Nathan wasn't supposed to hear. He watched from his office doorway, his face a mask of calm, but inside, a cold fire burned. A plan taking shape, precise and unyielding, to dismantle her betrayal without ever raising his voice. The morning after their anniversary dinner, Nathan had woken to the same routine. Allison scrolling through her phone, her coffee untouched, her eyes flicking to him only to gauge his mood. She'd become a master at this dance, playing the dutiful wife while weaving a web of lies. But Nathan was no longer her audience. He'd spent the night reviewing the gallery's financial records, cross-referencing her charitable donations with bank statements. The $10,000 she'd siphoned wasn't a one-time slip. It was part of a pattern. Smaller amounts, $500 here, $1,000 there, had been funneled to her personal account over months, funding dinners, trips, and gifts for Dylan. Nathan saved every transaction, his fingers steady as he built a digital vault of her deceit. He wasn't just collecting evidence, he was fortifying his position. 3 years ago, Allison had signed over operational control of Pure Canvas, dismissing the paperwork as tedious. That decision, born of her laziness, gave Nathan power she'd forgotten he held. He had access to every contract, every email, every invoice. She thought she owned the gallery's spotlight, but he controlled its foundation. And now he was laying the groundwork to pull it out from under her. Nathan enlisted Matt, his old college friend and an IT specialist with a knack for staying under the radar. Over beers at a quiet Portland brewpub, Nathan explained the situation, his voice low but firm. "She's planning to sell the gallery, Matt. I need to lock down my files, make sure she can't touch them." Matt, lean and sharp-eyed, nodded without hesitation. "I can encrypt your drives, set up a shadow server, even monitor her accounts if you've got access. Nathan slid him a USB with Allison's login credentials, passwords she hadn't changed in years. By the next day, Matt had secured Nathan's evidence and set up alerts for any suspicious activity on the gallery's systems. "She tries to hack you. I'll know before she does," Matt said, a grin tugging at his lips. The alerts came faster than Nathan expected. Allison had tried logging into the gallery's main account from an unfamiliar IP, likely Dylan's laptop. She'd also searched for how to transfer business ownership on her tablet, unaware that Matt's software tracked her every keystroke. Nathan wasn't surprised. She was escalating, moving toward her endgame. Dylan's call had confirmed it. She wanted to cash out, leave Nathan with nothing, and start fresh with her lover. But Dylan was already wavering, his texts to her growing curt, his responses delayed. Nathan saw the cracks in their alliance and knew exactly how to widen them. He played his first card subtly. Using a burner email, Nathan sent Dylan a single message. "I know about the gallery. Back off, or your boss hears everything." He attached a screenshot of a hotel receipt, Allison's name, Dylan's card, a weekend in Seattle. The reply came within hours. "I'm out, man. She's on her own." Nathan deleted the exchange, but not before saving Dylan's admission. It was leverage, a piece of the puzzle he'd use later. For now, he needed Allison to feel secure, to keep climbing the ladder he was about to saw through. At home, Allison's behavior shifted. After weeks of indifference, she turned on the charm, leaving sticky notes on Nathan's coffee mug. "You're the best, babe," and packing him lunches with heart-shaped napkins. It was an act and a sloppy one. Nathan saw through it. Dylan's distance had rattled her, and she was hedging her bets, keeping Nathan close in case her plan fell apart. One morning, as he brushed his teeth, she slipped behind him, her arms wrapping around his waist. "We should take a weekend away," she murmured, her breath warm against his neck. Nathan paused, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "Maybe," he said, his voice neutral. She didn't see the flicker of disgust in his gaze. Didn't know he'd recorded her latest call with Dylan, where she'd begged him to stick to the plan. That call had been a goldmine. Nathan listened to the recording late at night, his headphones blocking out the world. "Dylan, we can still make this work," Allison pleaded. "I'll get the gallery's valuation, find a buyer." Nathan won't fight, he's too predictable. Dylan's voice was sharp. "You're moving too fast. I'm not risking my job for this." The call ended with Allison's frustrated sigh, and Nathan smiled. Her desperation was his opening. He began to tighten the net. Using his power of attorney, Nathan quietly restructured the gallery's LLC, transferring Allison's nominal ownership to a salaried partner role. The paperwork, buried in a stack of routine filings, went unnoticed. She hadn't read a contract in years. He also met with the gallery's accountant, a no-nonsense woman named Clara, who confirmed Allison's donations were fraudulent. "This could trigger an IRS audit," Clara warned, her pen tapping the desk. "You sure you want to flag it?" Nathan nodded. "Not yet, but keep the files ready." Clara's eyes narrowed, but she agreed, sensing the storm brewing. Allison's next move came sooner than expected. She started hovering at the gallery, asking about sales reports, poking into files she'd ignored for years. "Just want to stay in the loop," she said, her smile tight. Nathan played along, handing her outdated spreadsheets, watching her pretend to care. He knew what she was doing, scouting the business's value for her sale. But every document she touched was a decoy. Every login she tried was monitored by Matt. She was a mouse in a maze, and Nathan held the map. One evening, as rain drummed against the gallery's windows, Nathan found her in his office, rifling through a filing cabinet. She jumped when he flicked on the light. "Jesus, Nate, you scared me," she said, clutching a folder. "Just looking for the Q3 projections." He leaned against the doorframe, his voice calm. "You don't need those. I handle the numbers. Remember?" Her eyes darted to the folder, then back to him. "Right?" she said, forcing a laugh. "You're always on top of things." She left the room, but not before Nathan noticed the tremor in her hands. She was nervous. Good. That night, Nathan sat in his home office, the glow of his laptop casting shadows on the walls. Matt had sent an update. Allison had emailed a business broker, asking for a discreet valuation of Pure Canvas. The email included a lie. She claimed Nathan was retiring and wanted to sell. Nathan forwarded it to Clara, adding it to his growing dossier. He leaned back, his mind racing. Allison thought she was playing him, but she was the one being played. Every lie she told, every step she took, was another nail in the coffin he was building. Not with anger, but with patience. That night, Nathan sat in his home office, the glow of his laptop casting shadows on the walls. Matt had sent an update. Allison had emailed a business broker, asking for a discreet valuation of Pure Canvas. The email included a lie. She claimed Nathan was retiring and wanted to sell. Nathan forwarded it to Clara, adding it to his growing dossier. He leaned back, his mind racing. Allison thought she was playing him, but she was the one being played. Every lie she told, every step she took, was another nail in the coffin he was building. Not with anger, but with patience. As he closed his laptop, Allison knocked softly on the door. "You're up late," she said, leaning against the frame, her silk robe slipping off one shoulder. "Just work," he replied, his tone even. She stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm. "You do too much, Nate. Let me help." Her voice was syrupy, but her eyes were calculating. Nathan met her gaze, his heart steady. "I've got it covered," he said, turning away. She lingered for a moment, then left, her footsteps fading down the hall. Nathan exhaled, his resolve hardening. The game was on, and Allison had no idea how far behind she already was. Allison's heels clicked like a countdown on the gallery's hardwood floor. Each step a declaration of war she didn't know she'd already lost. She strode in with Dylan at her side, their shoulders brushing as they laughed over a private joke, her eyes daring Nathan to react. He stood behind the counter, his face a fortress of calm. But inside, a storm raged. Every glance between them fueled his resolve to unravel her lies with the precision of a master chess player moving toward checkmate. The morning had started with a deceptive quiet. Nathan woke to find Allison gone, her side of the bed cold. A note on the counter. "Early meeting back soon." He knew better. Matt's software had flagged her activity. Emails sent at 2 a.m. to a business broker, scheduling a meeting to discuss selling Pure Canvas. She'd lied again, claiming Nathan was stepping back to justify her pitch. Nathan saved the emails, his fingers steady as he added them to his growing arsenal. Allison thought she was pulling the strings, but every move she made tightened the noose he'd carefully crafted. He'd spent the week fortifying his defenses. With Matt's help, Nathan had locked down the gallery's digital assets. Accounts, contracts, even the website, behind layers of encryption Allison couldn't crack. He'd also met with Clara, the accountant, who'd uncovered more of Allison's fraud. Forged invoices for consulting fees that funneled $15,000 to a shell account linked to Dylan. "This is tax evasion," Clara said, her voice clipped. "You report this, she's done." Nathan nodded, his jaw tight. "Soon," he said. "I need her to overplay her hand first." Clara raised an eyebrow but prepared the paperwork, her pen a silent ally in his war. Allison's boldness at the gallery was her latest gambit. She'd brought Dylan to Pure Canvas, parading him like a trophy, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. The gallery was busy that morning, clients browsing new abstracts while soft jazz played overhead. Nathan watched from the counter, his pulse steady as Allison leaned closer to Dylan, pointing at a painting. "This could be perfect for the fall showcase," she said loudly, her voice carrying to ensure Nathan heard. Dylan nodded, his hand grazing her back. A gesture too intimate for business. The clients didn't notice, but Nathan did. He saw everything. He let them play their charade for 10 minutes, then approached, his voice even. "Didn't know we had a vendor meeting today." Allison's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, Dylan's just helping with ideas for the wine pairings at the next event," she said, her tone syrupy. Dylan avoided Nathan's gaze, his fingers fidgeting with his phone. "Nice of him," Nathan said, his eyes locking onto Allison's. "Hope you told him we don't pay for unsolicited advice." Dylan forced a chuckle, mumbling, "Just here as a friend," before stepping back. Nathan held Allison's stare, letting the weight of his words settle. She blinked first. They retreated to Nathan's office, closing the door but not the blinds. Through the glass, he saw them huddle over a laptop, hers, not the gallery's. Matt had already flagged her device. She was pulling financial reports, likely to show Dylan the gallery's value. Nathan didn't interrupt. He returned to the counter, helping a client with a purchase, his movements mechanical. Every second they spent in his office was another mistake, another piece of evidence. Matt texted him, "She's downloading files. Got it all logged. Want me to block her?" Nathan replied, "Let her dig." When they emerged, Allison's face was flushed, her confidence strained. Dylan left without a word, his shoulders hunched. Nathan waited until the gallery quieted, then entered his office. Allison was still there, flipping through a binder of old contracts. She jumped when he spoke. "Find what you needed?" Her eyes narrowed. "Just catching up, Nate. You've been so secretive lately." He leaned against the desk, his voice low. "Funny. I was about to say the same about you." She laughed, but it was brittle, like glass about to shatter. "You're paranoid," she said, slamming the binder shut. "Maybe," Nathan replied, "but I'm not blind." That evening, the tension spilled over. Allison came home late, her hair damp from the Portland rain, her purse slung carelessly over her shoulder. Nathan was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, the knife's rhythm steady despite the storm in his chest. "Long day?" he asked, not looking up. She dropped her purse on the counter, her voice sharp. "You're acting weird, Nate. What's going on?" He set the knife down, turning to face her. "You tell me, Allison. Why'd you bring Dylan to my gallery?" Her eyes widened, but she recovered with a scoff. "Our gallery. And he's a contact, not a threat." "God, you're so dramatic." Nathan stepped closer, his voice ablade. "You brought a man you're scheming with into my business. You smiled at him like I wasn't there. That's not drama. That's disrespect." Allison's face hardened, and she shoved a stack of mail off the counter, papers scattering across the floor. "You don't get to lecture me," she snapped. "I've been carrying this marriage while you bury yourself in spreadsheets." Nathan didn't flinch. He tapped his phone, the screen glowing with a recording app. "You just damaged our property." "Keep going, Allison. It's all on tape." Her mouth opened, then closed, her face draining of color. "You're sick," she whispered, grabbing her purse and storming out. Nathan didn't follow. He knelt, gathering the scattered mail, his hands steady. Among the bills was a letter from the business broker, addressed to Allison, confirming her valuation request. He photographed it, sent it to Matt, and added it to his dossier. Then he called Clara. "Flag the fraud to the IRS," he said. "Anonymously." Clara paused. "You sure? This'll bury her." Nathan's voice was ice. She buried herself. The next morning, Allison tried to play nice again, leaving a note on the fridge. "Sorry about last night. Let's talk." Nathan ignored it. He arrived at the gallery early, meeting with a new hire, Sarah, a sharp young curator he'd brought on to handle daily operations. "You're taking on more responsibility," he told her. "I need someone I can trust." Sarah nodded, sensing the undercurrent but not asking questions. Nathan was building a team loyal to him, not Allison, a shield for the battle ahead. By noon, Allison stormed in, her eyes wild. "You changed the account passwords," she hissed, her voice low to avoid Sarah's ears. Nathan looked up from his laptop, his expression neutral. "I don't trust you." She leaned closer, her breath sharp. "You said we were trying again." He shook his head. "You said that. I never agreed." Her hands clenched, but she didn't lash out. Instead, she straightened, her voice cold. "This isn't over, Nate." She turned to leave, but Nathan called after her. "One more thing. You don't own half this gallery anymore. Check the LLC filings. Her steps faltered, her face paling. What? She whispered. He slid a folder across the counter. Read it. You signed it last year. Allison snatched the folder, her fingers trembling as she scanned the pages. The restructuring had stripped her ownership, leaving her a salaried employee, a detail she'd missed in her rush to avoid boring paperwork. You tricked me, she said, her voice shaking. Nathan met her gaze, unyielding. No, Allison. You gambled our life on a con. I just made sure I'd survive it. She stared at him, her mask of confidence crumbling, then walked out, the door slamming behind her. Nathan exhaled, his heart pounding not with fear, but with certainty. The war had begun, and Allison was fighting on a battlefield he'd already rigged. Allison's scream shattered the silence of the gallery, a raw, desperate sound that turned every head in the room. She stood in Nathan's office, clutching the LLC papers, her face a mask of fury and fear as she realized the empire she'd claimed was no longer hers. Nathan leaned against the doorframe, his eyes cold as steel, watching her unravel, knowing this moment, her collapse, was the culmination of every lie she'd spun and every truth he'd weaponized. The day had started with a deceptive calm. Nathan arrived at pure canvas before dawn, the Portland sky still bruised with clouds. He'd spent the night finalizing his strategy with Matt and Clara, their texts a lifeline in the war he'd waged alone. Matt had intercepted Allison's latest move, an email to a lawyer, begging for a way to undo the LLC restructuring. She's panicking, Matt wrote. Her lawyer's saying she's got no case. Clara, meanwhile, had filed the anonymous IRS tip, flagging Allison's fraudulent donations. The wheels were turning, and Nathan was ready for the fallout. Allison's arrival at the gallery was a spectacle. She stormed in at noon, ignoring Sarah, the new curator, who was guiding a client through a sculpture display. Her heels stabbed the floor, her purse swinging like a weapon. Nathan was at the counter, reviewing invoices, when she slammed the LLC folder in front of him. You think you can steal my life? She hissed, her voice low but venomous. Clients glanced over, sensing the tension. Nathan didn't flinch. Your life? You mean the one you built on my work and my trust? His words were quiet, but they cut deep. Allison's eyes blazed, but she didn't answer. She turned and marched to his office, slamming the door. Through the glass, Nathan watched her pace, tearing through drawers, searching for something to salvage her claim. Sarah approached him, her voice hushed. Should I call someone? Nathan shook his head. Let her dig her grave. He knew Allison's outburst was a gift. Every tantrum, every reckless move, was another nail in her coffin. Matt's software was recording her laptop's activity. She was emailing Dylan, begging him to fix this. Dylan's reply, intercepted by Matt, was curt. You're on your own. I'm out. Nathan allowed himself a faint smile. The cracks in her plan were widening. When Allison emerged, her composure was gone. She stormed back to the counter, her voice rising. You set me up, Nathan. You planned this. Clients whispered, edging toward the exit. Sarah stepped forward, but Nathan raised a hand, signaling her to stay back. You set yourself up, he said, his tone even. You stole money, lied about the business, brought your partner into my gallery. And you thought I wouldn't notice. Allison's face paled, but she doubled down, her voice a snarl. You're nothing without me. I made this place. Nathan slid a folder across the counter, bank statements, forged invoices, her emails to the broker. You made a mess, he said, and now you're done. Her scream followed, a sound so raw it silenced the gallery. She grabbed the folder, ripping pages in half, her hands shaking. You'll pay for this, she shouted, storming into the office again. Nathan followed, closing the door behind him. Inside, she was a hurricane. Papers flying, a coffee mug crashing to the floor. You can't take everything, she yelled, tears streaking her face. Nathan stood still, his voice low. I didn't take anything. You gave it away when you chose him. She froze, her breath ragged, then sank into a chair, her defiance crumbling. "Get out," Nathan said, his words final. She grabbed her purse and left, the gallery's silence deafening in her wake. That evening, Nathan sat with Clara at a quiet diner, the rain drumming outside. "The IRS is moving," she said, stirring her coffee. "They've flagged her accounts for audit. She's looking at fines, maybe jail." Nathan nodded, his face unreadable. "And the gallery?" Clara pulled out a tablet showing the restructured LLC. "It's yours, clean and clear. She's got no claim." Nathan exhaled, the weight of months lifting, but not entirely. He'd won this battle, but the war wasn't over. Allison wouldn't go quietly. She didn't. 2 days later, Nathan received a legal notice. Allison had filed a complaint with the Labor Department, accusing him of coercion and financial misconduct. She claimed he'd forged her signatures, locked her out of the business, and created a hostile work environment. The lies were bold, desperate, but Nathan was ready. He called Rachel Burns, a sharp-eyed attorney he'd hired weeks ago, and sent her his dossier. Bank records, emails, recordings, even the video Matt had pulled from the gallery's security cameras, showing Allison's outburst. "She's got nothing," Rachel said, her voice confident. "But she's banking on sympathy. We'll bury her in court." Nathan spent the next week preparing, his life a blur of meetings and strategy. He met with Vivian, Allison's mother, at a small cafe, showing her the evidence, screenshots, invoices, Dylan's texts. Vivian, a stern woman with graying hair, read in silence, her lips tightening. "I raised her better," she said finally, her voice heavy. "Do what you must." Nathan nodded, respecting her pain but needing her as a witness. She agreed, her loyalty to truth outweighing her love for her daughter. The night before the hearing, Allison called him, her voice trembling through the phone. "Nate, we can fix this. I'll drop the complaint. Just give me half the gallery." Nathan stood in his kitchen, the phone pressed to his ear, the rain outside a steady pulse. "You don't get it," he said. "You lost everything when you lied to me." She sobbed, her words a jumble of apologies and threats. "You'll regret this," she whispered before hanging up. Nathan set the phone down, his heart steady. Regret was her burden, not his. He slept soundly that night, the first time in months. The hearing loomed, a battlefield where truth would face lies. Nathan was armed, not with anger, but with evidence, allies, and a clarity that had replaced his pain. Allison thought she could rewrite their story, paint him as the villain. But Nathan had written the ending long ago, each move calculated, each piece in place. She'd walked into his trap, and now the door was closing. Tomorrow, in the cold light of the courtroom, he'd show her what it meant to lose everything. Not with a scream, but with the quiet power of justice. The courtroom's silence was a blade, sharp and final, as Allison's lies crumbled under the weight of truth. She sat at the defendant's table, her face pale, her hands twisting a tissue as Nathan's attorney laid bare every betrayal, each forged invoice, each stolen dollar, each whispered plan to ruin him. Nathan stood in the gallery, his heart steady, watching the woman he'd once loved lose everything, not to his anger, but to the quiet, relentless power of justice he'd wielded like a master sculptor carving truth from chaos. The hearing had begun with a deceptive calm. Portland's courthouse, with its gray stone walls and polished floors, hummed with the day's cases, but Nathan's was a storm waiting to break. Rachel Burns, his attorney, stood poised, her briefcase a vault of evidence Nathan had spent months building. Across the room, Allison's lawyer, a nervous man in a cheap suit, shuffled papers, unprepared for the onslaught. Allison herself avoided Nathan's gaze, her eyes darting to the judge, a stern woman with silver hair who'd already warned her to stick to facts. Nathan sat in the back, flanked by Matt and Clara, his allies in a war Allison hadn't seen coming. Rachel opened with a scalpel's precision, presenting the gallery's bank records. $25,000 siphoned by Allison over 2 years, disguised as charitable donations and consulting fees. She showed emails to Dylan, Allison's lover, plotting to sell pure canvas, claiming Nathan was retiring. The judge's brow furrowed as Rachel played a recording, Allison's voice clear. "Nathan won't fight. He's too weak to stop us." Gasps rippled through the room, but Nathan didn't react. He'd heard those words before, each one a spark that had fueled his resolve. Allison's lawyer tried to pivot, claiming Nathan had coerced her signatures and created a hostile workplace. He called Allison to the stand, where she spun a tearful tale of a controlling husband who'd trapped her in the business. Her voice trembled, her eyes glistening, but Nathan saw the performance for what it was. A desperate act from a woman who'd always played the victim. Rachel didn't hesitate. She cross-examined Allison with ruthless clarity, presenting the LLC papers Allison had signed, her digital signatures on fraudulent invoices, and security footage of her outburst in the gallery, papers flying, a mug shattering. "Is this the behavior of a coerced employee?" Rachel asked. Allison stammered, her story unraveling, her tears no longer convincing. The turning point came when Vivian, Allison's mother, took the stand. Nathan had braced for her refusal, but Vivian's face was stone, her voice steady. "My daughter lied to me, to her husband, to everyone," she said, her words cutting through the room. "I saw the evidence, her emails, her theft. She betrayed us all." Allison's head dropped, a sob escaping her. But Vivian didn't look at her. The judge's pen paused, her expression softening with respect for Vivian's resolve. Nathan felt a pang. Not triumph, but sorrow for the family Allison had fractured. Rachel sealed the case with Dylan's testimony, extracted via subpoena. Pale and sweating, he admitted to the affair and the plan to sell the gallery, confirming Allison's fraud. "She pushed me into it," he mumbled, avoiding her glare. Rachel didn't need to press further. The judge's frown said enough. When the Labor Department's representative testified, confirming the IRS audit and Allison's tax evasion, the room felt smaller, the air heavier. Allison's lawyer had no rebuttal, his papers untouched, his client silent. The judge's ruling was swift. Allison's complaint was dismissed. She was ordered to repay the stolen $25,000, plus fines for fraud. Her accounts were frozen, her access to pure canvas revoked, and a restraining order barred her from contacting Nathan. The IRS audit loomed, with potential criminal charges. As the gavel fell, Allison didn't move. Her shoulders slumped, her world reduced to the tissue in her hands. Nathan stood, his face unreadable, and walked out, the courtroom's echo fading behind him. That night, he sat in his office at Pure Canvas, the gallery dark except for a single lamp. Matt and Clara joined him, bringing takeout and beers, a quiet celebration of survival. "You did it," Matt said, raising his bottle. Nathan shook his head. "I just held the line." Clara, ever practical, slid a tablet across the desk, showing the gallery's new valuation, higher than ever, thanks to Sarah's curatorial work and Nathan's rebranding. "You're free now," she said. Nathan nodded, but freedom felt heavy, laced with the ghosts of what he'd lost. He sent Allison one final message, not out of cruelty but closure. A small package arrived at her temporary apartment in Eugene, where she'd fled after the ruling. Inside was a USB drive and a note. "You thought you'd break me. Listen and learn." The drive held a recording Nathan hadn't used in court. A late-night call where Allison laughed with Dylan, plotting to frame Nathan for embezzlement, to destroy his reputation, and leave him with nothing. Her voice was gleeful, unrecognizable from the woman he'd married. Nathan hadn't needed it. The judge had ruled without it. But he wanted her to know. He'd always been one step ahead, and her defeat was her own design. 6 months later, Pure Canvas thrived under its new name, Dawnlight Gallery. Nathan had launched a community art program, hosting free workshops for local kids, their laughter filling the space where Allison's lies once echoed. Sarah ran daily operations, her energy a spark that drew new clients. Matt upgraded the gallery's tech, making it a hub for digital art shows, while Clara kept the books pristine. Clients noticed the change. "It's like the place has a soul now," one said, admiring a vibrant mural. Nathan smiled, his first real one in years. Allison faded into obscurity. Word reached Nathan that she worked at a bookstore in Eugene. Her name changed, her LinkedIn deleted. Her reputation was ash, her lies exposed by whispers that followed her. Nathan didn't spread them. Truth had a way of traveling on its own. Vivian called once, her voice soft, thanking him for sparing her daughter worse in court. "She's lost enough," she said. Nathan agreed, but he felt no pity. Allison had chosen her path. He stood in dawnlight one evening, the rain soft against the windows, a canvas before him. He painted for the first time since their marriage, bold strokes of blue and gold, a horizon breaking free. The brush felt right in his hand, like a piece of himself reclaimed. Allison's note, the one she'd left after their fight, "Let's talk," sat in a drawer, unopened, a relic of a life he'd outgrown. He didn't hate her, didn't love her. He was simply done. Nathan hung the painting in the gallery's entrance, a beacon for visitors. Clients asked its name. "Dawn," he said, and they nodded, sensing its weight. The moral wasn't spoken, but it lived in every stroke. Betrayal builds its own cage, but truth carves a path to freedom. Nathan walked home that night, the rain cool on his face, his steps light. The war was over and he'd won. Not with vengeance, but with the life he'd rebuilt, one honest brushstroke at a time.